Oh, man. Welcome on in, everybody. Tobin here with you. Thanks for checking out the channel. Late night here. I'm recording this at about 12:30 a.m. On a Thursday morning. I had just gotten back from the arena, boots on the ground at the Kaseya Center for a tough one tonight, man. Miami Heat lose 100-88 to the Denver Nuggets. And the ownership of the Miami Heat just continues from Denver's side of things. Miami just cannot beat this team. Postseason, regular season, doesn't really matter. It just always seems like it's about the same picture every time they take them out. There's a lot of valiant efforts. They feel like they can go toe-to-toe with them. I think that Bam Adebayo does about as good a job on Nikola Jokic as you can. Probably about as good a job as anybody did in the league. And today, it was just tremendous, against Joker. Joker finished with 12 points, 6 assists. I don't know how much better a job you could do against the best player in the world, and Bam did that today against him and was an absolute stud in that third quarter. But the offense today was just so putrid, and it just seems like against this behemoth Nuggets team, they just cannot score, man. It really is a crazy thing, because even going back to the finals and the last time these guys, I think the defensive effort is there for Miami, but I don't know if it's just them putting so much into it that they just don't have anything on the offensive end. I felt like in that first quarter, Miami, it felt very much like Miami was playing tight. Denver has whatever this mental and it's a weird thing, right? Because it's not very common that a franchise has anything over Miami, and it's odd because it's a Western Conference team, so you only see them twice a year. But now, what always adds to mental grips on teams, or rivalries, if it is more even, which this is not a rivalry right now, because the Heat are quite frankly getting boat raced in this rivalry for right now. And it's interesting because I do think that Eric Spoelstra really does. He's a maniac, and I do think wants to, he wants to figure this team out, but they can't. And it just feels like Michael Malone he's a fantastic coach, and really is the only guy who feels like he can go toe-to-toe in a series with Eric Spoelstra. And yeah, he has fantastic players, but he also just always seems to pull the right levers. And even in today's game, this is a game where he did not close with Jamal Murray. They had a fourth quarter that was basically taken over by Christian Brown and Reggie Jackson, who had been struggling for them. And he just always seems to have the right switches. They always seem to have the right execution against Miami. And I think they really, really dig that. Michael Malone had a little bit of a team petty comment after this, to which he was asked about the idea of Jamal Murray finishing the game or not wanting to check into the game and letting Reggie Jackson go. And I read the quote. It was from Vic Lombardi, who's their sideline reporter. He did a good interview today with Mike McDaniel, who was courtside. And I read the quote, and I just thought I was like, damn, that's kind of a pot shot, team petty. It reads really snarky, I think, if I'm Michael Malone, which he has some of that to him. We've seen he can bristle at things. We've seen him, get mad because people call him, have the audacity to call him Mike instead of Michael. But he said he was asked about Michael Malone, asked if Jamal Murray wanted to check in back in the few minutes left. Murray told him he wanted Reggie Jackson to enjoy his moment. He said, quote, "Part of our culture is being selfless. We have a culture too, and that's who we are." I was like, damn, Michael Malone. All right. Are you, I was like, I wonder how that sounded, because it reads pretty snarky. It reads pretty like, you think the Heat have a culture?
Never for a lack of effort. The guy's in the gym all the time. And the funny thing is, I had Jamal Murray and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope at the scorers table during that stretch. And this speaks a lot about our group. Both those guys said to me, Coach, let Reggie ride, let CB ride. This group is playing well. And, part of our culture, because we do have a culture in Denver as well, part of our culture is being selfless, getting over yourself. And I think that, that's another example of how our team is always getting over the individual, thinking about the collective. And, really happy for Reggie Jackson. It hasn't been an easy stretch for him, but he showed out in the fourth quarter of a really important game for us.
Yeah, he really did. And, but he is like, oh, because we have a culture too. I was like, geez, all right, dude. And I got to tell you, it's just an odd thing to be in this position they cannot beat this team. They're close. I think Miami's close. I think Miami can go toe to toe with them. I think that they have the competitive spirit. It's just the offensive execution against them. And the guy you have to point to the most in it is they defend and shut down Jimmy Butler better than anybody in the league. It's not even close. And yeah, Jimmy's going through, I guess, a little bit of a rut right now, but he had some looks today, but it was not impacting his will on the game. Jimmy Butler, one of the things that makes him fantastic is he has just such an ability to just, will and be tougher and, impact that. And just, I don't know, Denver just doesn't seem like they ever bend to it. I mean, first of all, Aaron Gordon's a moose. And they always try and put that matchup. They have trees all over the place, but they don't get sloppy with the basketball. Jimmy is so good at getting into passing lanes and causing easy buckets. That was another tough thing. Miami, not a good fast break team as it was, but just didn't get a lot of relief points in that regard. They do such a good job on Jimmy. And here's the thing, man, when you have a game like this, where Bam, who's already in an offensive slump, but Bam triggered this game back to really give Miami a little bit of a jolt. Bam's third quarter was incredible. Bam had a third quarter where he hits a 3-point shot. They sag off him. He makes it 59 apiece. He then draws a foul on Joker to put the Miami Heat back on top. He then gets this beautiful up and under on Michael Porter Jr. for a slam that puts Miami up 3. Then he gets this unbelievable pass to Duncan Robinson where he out jokers the Joker with just a bullet pass assist. He got, fast break bucket down the court, reverse layup on Joker that caused the Nuggets to get a timeout. Less than 3 minutes left in the third quarter, and you're like, man, that really you felt like it was energized. But much like last year, anytime there was momentum with this Nuggets team, somebody came back and hit a 3. Now in the finals last year, it was Jamal Murray. Michael Porter Jr. has made up for both of those, for all of those stinkers in the finals because he lit Miami up both times around. He's been the leading scorer in both of those games. He came back and he evened things right up. But when you're Bam and you have to have the burden of stopping Nikola Jokic and Jimmy, you got to step up, dude. Is it time or is it not time? Because I thought it was time. I thought it was Jim VP time. And I just did not see Jimmy be able to find any kind of confidence or rhythm tonight. Only got to the free throw line a couple times. Just did not have his jump shot going. It's just a little bit odd. He didn't. I would have liked to hear his thoughts on it. He did not speak to the media afterwards, which is fine. He did just speak the last game, and it's not like Jimmy speaks after every single game. But I would have liked to know, what the hell went on, because they needed somebody to take over this game. And Denver also, they just forced Miami into the shot diet that they wanted. That was another thing, is Miami, I think today shot 21 threes total, but like there was like some late chucks. Like it was basically under 20 attempts, which is pretty crazy. For example, the Miami Heat average 33 threes a game, which is like middle of the pack. It's not like the most, but you basically held them to half of that for most of the game. And on top of it, you only hit 5 of them, and one of them was from Bam Adebayo, which, you know, he never hits threes. So they didn't have any of we didn't have any runs where it was like bam, bam, back-to-back threes. And I think they only had, was it one in the first half? Because they came out of the gate, Nico hit a 3, and then I think Duncan Robinson hit a 3, and then Bam hit a 3. So I think 3 of their threes were in the third quarter. So you had no fourth quarter momentum that got the building rocking. And I guess under all of this, the one thing that I haven't mentioned that's kind of a big deal is Miami's lost 4 in a row. And this first of all, that really goes back. Like, there's no shame in losing to the Nuggets. They're the Nuggets. They're the champ right now, and you have to knock them off. And they have a grip on you, whether it's finals, regular season, whether it's Nikola Jokic blindsiding Markieff Morris, and there's nearly a brouhaha outside the locker room. Whatever. They've gotten the last laugh on Miami with the stupid Joker brothers that came down here and Jimmy hurting his tailbone in that game. They have gotten the upper hand on Miami every single damn time. Miami has not beat them in their own building in 6 years. And that's just an odd thing for this franchise. Celtics, you know, they have the upper hand. You know, they have the upper hand, and at least the most recent upper hand. Bucks, okay, there's been a Bucks sweep that they went on to win the title, but of the last 5 years of the Bucks, the Heat have had the upper hand. Knicks, not even a friggin' question. Philadelphia 76ers, please. So most of the Heat of what you would call their quote-unquote rivals, the Heat has the upper hand, whether you want to put it on rings or even with the Mavericks, if you want to go back to, hey, the Mavericks and the Heat are 1-1. If you want to go to another, that's probably the only Western Conference team you could really go with is the Mavericks hatred, and that's 1-1, you know? But this Denver team, they have a ring up on the Heat. They gentlemen swept them last year. There was a lot of shit talking from their guys saying, we didn't even really sweat Miami. And, you know, unfortunately for the Heat, until they make Denver sweat them, they shouldn't. I mean, they've completely toyed with the Heat every single time. Even today, it almost felt like today, like, yeah, it was even, but when Denver wanted to, boom, they took off. And even Spo, you know, kind of echoed that sentiment afterwards. And, you know, it was nice. Like, I could tell Spo really wanted it because Spo went on this impassioned speech today about Bam and Bam versus Jokic.
There's no one better than the league that can negotiate this. First of all, nobody will go toe-to-toe, minute for minute, against Jokic other than Bam. Bam signs up for that, and he'll put himself out there and be vulnerable, you know, to the competition. That's the competitor of all competitors, and you know that just sets the tone. But it is difficult. You know, you have to negotiate so many different things. At the top of the floor, in the post, you know, they started to post them up a little bit more. And then once you start getting comfortable with that, go to the two-man action. And then you have to do pick-and-roll basketball, you know, and then ball all of a sudden will go back to him. And then now you have to play, you know, him off the dribble and try to, you know, disrupt passing angles and all that. You know, but that's why Bam is Bam, you know. That's why I always say year after year he should be in the consideration for Defensive Player of the Year because he can do things and will put himself out there to try to do things that the majority of the league won't because it's easier just to not do it, not you know, because sometimes you're going to get beat. You know, Jokic is a great player, and sometimes you're going to get scored on or foul or you know, you play your pick and roll defense, the ball goes back to him and he scores and somebody else didn't do their job. Like, there's a lot of things that go into it. And they're a complex team, you know. You feel like you have a handle on them. I mean, we still held them to 100, you feel like you have a handle on them, and then all of a sudden they can just separate. And those skirmishes, at this point, they do that, I think, better than anybody else in the league.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
Locker was open.
And I asked Michael Malone about this today, and I asked him, I said, well, why these guys have a lot of respect for each other, very clearly, Bam and Joker, right? And Joker played this clip on the radio show today about him talking about in the last matchup. He goes about why he respects Bam so much, and they really do respect that battle. And I think it's because, as Spo was saying, he will battle him all game. This is not just possessions. This is not just, hey, I'm going to do as best as I can. He is going to dig in and try and do his best job. And he did fantastic today, and it still wasn't good enough for the Miami Heat. Nobody was able to step off offensively for that, and that's what the shame is. Malone was saying, like, why is he so good? I mean, his post defense, he's able to keep the ball really out of his hands. The Heat were even trying from the get-go, like, give the ball in Bam's hands and, try and make Nico run. Just nobody was hitting shots. They had open looks and nobody was converting anything. And before you know it, Denver's up 13. And shout out, by the way, to Thomas Bryant, who honestly came in those 9 minutes, and especially in his first stint, and did a really, really decent job. But it's all for naught. Like, this is not a team that takes moral victories. Miami Heat have to close and get it done, and they cannot do it against Denver. Denver owns their ass. That's just the facts. And until they can, you're going to get the snarky comments from Michael Malone while he shines his ring with your logo on it, and it's irritating to me because I'm not used to the Miami Heat being in this position, and I really wanted them to get that game tonight. They weren't able to. There were some valiant efforts. There was some really cool stuff that went on in today's game. But ultimately it wasn't good enough. And you're in a 4-game losing streak right now. I think the Heat sit still 8th. You're got mandatory wins that are coming up against the Denver Nuggets. Against the Detroit Pistons, excuse me. God, if there are mandatory wins against the Denver Nuggets, that would be bad news for us. You got a couple of mandatory wins coming up. 4-game road trip, but 2 against the Pistons here. I mean, if you don't sweep these, old Tobin's going to be doing more than drinking a bottle of tequila like I did after the Wizards game, which, by the way, this goes back to don't lose to the mother bleeping Wizards. This is what the position it puts you into. And it's strange because, like, look, Miami's again mired in another losing streak, 4 games at a critical time. It doesn't feel exactly like the last time because I felt like with that was a lot of not playing. This has been good competition that Miami has been playing out west, and the West is just, they've been right there, but they've pulled away in every single fourth quarter. They've all felt very similar, other than that debacle against Washington. So it is interesting. Like, Miami has to figure out, these things and get things all squared away before this playoff time gets going, because we're 65 into this. We got 17 games left, not much time, not many measuring stick games that are left, but that was a frustrating one tonight, man. I really wanted Miami to get this, and they just weren't. And the thing that I think is also frustrating about Denver is, on either Miami side or Denver's, one of the other things that's frustrating when you have this with an out-of-conference team is you only face them twice a year, and then you don't know if you're going to face them again. I asked Bam about this afterwards in the game, and I don't think he buys into an idea that Denver has anything over Miami, but he's hopeful that the next time around that will be the time.
You have to figure that out.
Man, there's not many teams you guys haven't had success against. Denver's kind of had your number. How frustrating is it from a competitive level that you guys just can't seem to figure them out?
It's game by game. You take game by game. You never know. You might see them down the road again, and that might be the time where we'll get over the hump.
Is that something you hope? Because it's not guaranteed, obviously, with the playoffs.
Yeah, not guaranteed at all. But when situations happens, when you haven't beaten a team and it presents itself again, you feel like that's your moment, and it could happen.
How far off, I guess, does that hump seem with when you line up with him? Because he seemed like really games in the mud, really back and forth.
Take it game by game, man.
And honestly, like, look, there will be some things that figure out. I'm going to be honest with you. This is, when you look at this matchup in this series, this is a series where, you're dying for Tyler Hero in a series like this. I don't know what his situation is. Eric Spoelstra did not exactly give the most insightful answer on his health status, but yeah, you need Tyler. I think would be pretty key in a series like this if we do get a finals rematch. But Miami's got a lot of work to do before they can start thinking about that. Denver, they can I think already see the yellow brick road right to a chance to defend their throne. Miami, they still got some work to do.